A pleasant afternoon to each one of us. So we are the group 5 and we will be discussing the reflexes in humans. And our intended learning outcomes are demonstrate reflexes using human subject and identify the components of a reflex arc. The materials that are needed in this activity are Babinski reflex hammer, tongue depressor, pen light, absorbent cotton, and a rubber mallet. As we can see in the picture, reflex arc has 5 components. The first one is sensory receptor or our skin. Second one is sensory neuron. Third one is interneuron. And fourth is motor neuron. And the last one is effector organ, which is our skeletal muscle. For us to further understand reflex arc, here is another example. As we can see in the picture, the sun is the stimulus and the receptor is our skin wherein we can feel the heat, and then the message will go to our sensory neuron, and then it goes to our central nervous system or brain. Next is it goes to the motor neuron and then to the effector or our muscle, and last one is our response. In conclusion, the stimulus or heat is detected by the receptors of the skin. They send signals to the brain, which in turn instructs the body to cool off.
Corneal or conjunctival reflex with a clean piece of absorbent cotton. Touch the cornea by the pupil. Note and record the response. This results to pain that causes blinking of the eyelids. Pass a hand repeatedly in front of the subject's face. Note and record the response. Pupillary reflexes. Have your partner sit facing the light. Note the size of the pupil. Let the student close his/her eyes and cover them with his/her hands. After several seconds, uncover and stare directly at the light. Immediately take note of the change that occurs in the size of the pupil. Accommodation reflex. This is the ability of the eyes to focus on far objects at different distances to produce clear vision. The ciliary muscle is the most important muscle of accommodation. Have your partner sit away from the light while looking alternately at far and near objects without changing the light. Note the size of the pupil and the change that will occur. Pupillary skin reflex. Pinch the cheeks of your partner and observe what happens to the pupils of the eyes. Convergence reflex. While your partner is looking at a distant object, note the position of the eyeballs. Let him/her look at the near object and note the change in the position of the eyeballs.
Tendon or stretch reflexes. The tendinous attachments of muscle have special sensory receptors. If these receptors are stimulated by sudden, quick stretch, nerve impulses pass up to the spinal cord, through the synapse to the anterior motor neuron to the muscle and quick jerking contractions, such as patellar of knee reflex. This is illustrated with the sudden comfortably seated with one leg crossed over the other. The crossed leg should be relaxed, palpate for the patellar tendon, then strike it using rubber mallet of reflex hammer. Next is biceps reflex. Grasp the arm of your partner close to the elbow joint with your left thumb. Press the tendon of the biceps muscle, tap the thumb and note the contractions of the bicep reflection of the forearm. Next is the triceps reflex. Flex the arm of your partner at the elbow with the joint pointing outward. Tap the triceps tendon just above the olecranon. Note the extension of the elbow. Number 4. Ankle jerk or tendon of Achilles reflexes. Have your partner kneel with one leg or on a chair with the foot hanging freely over the edge of the chair. Tap the tendon of the Achilles and note the movement of the foot. And finally, wrist reflex. Tap the tendon of the flexor of the wrist about 1 inch above the joint. Note the flexion of the wrist.
Mercy Hartaniego, an aspiring nurse, will be discussing the other reflexes of human body. First one is sneezing reflex. So with a clean piece of cotton, tickle the inferior of the nostril. As we can see in the video, mucus is produced. And according to scientists, our brain sends a message to close our eyes when we sneeze. Also, this reflex is an involuntary. Second is palmar reflex. For adult, tightly stroke the palm of the subject and this results to flexion of the fingers. While in infant, place a finger inside of infant's palm and as a result, the hand will close around it or what we call flexion. This is also an involuntary reflex. Third is abdominal reflex. We have to stroke the skin at the center border of rectus abdominis or sides of rectus abdomen. And as we can see in the video, it causes the underlying abdominal wall muscle to contract, sometimes pulling the umbilicus towards the stimulus. Fourth is pharyngeal reflex. We have to touch the back of the pharynx with the sterile wooden tongue depressor, and as a result, there is a contraction of the throat. That happens when something touches the roof of your mouth, the back of your tongue, or throat. Fifth is plantar reflex. Lightly scratch the sole of the foot, and as a result, the foot will remain still or the toes may curl downward. Sixth, axon reflex. Scratch the skin of forearm firmly with a blunt, rough instrument. This results in vasodilation or widening of blood vessels as a result of relaxation of blood vessels' muscular walls. Seventh is Babinski's reflex. Can only be observed among infants and absent in adults. So sharply stroking the outer edge of the sole of the foot with rough object. And its positive result is fanning of the foot toes with the dorsal extension of a big toe, while the negative result is plantar flexion of toes. 8 is palatal reflex. Touch the palate with cotton swab and as a result, the muscle region will contract and the stimulation of palate causes swallowing. Ninth is epigastric reflex. Stroke the skin from below down to the upper abdominal wall. The result is drawing in of the skin of epigastrium. Tenth is cremasteric reflex. It can only be observed in males. Stroke the inner surface of thigh lightly, and its result is elevation of the testes while stroking can be observed. The last is gluteal reflex. Stroke the skin over the gluteal muscle lightly, and as a result, there is a contraction of gluteal muscle observed as skin overlying the muscle moves.
Phenomenon of inhibition. Reciprocal inhibition, the stretch of one muscle inhibits the activity of the opposing muscle. Activating one muscle or muscle group inhibits the antagonist. Reciprocal inhibition. It describes the process of muscle on one side of a joint relaxing to accommodate contraction on the other side of the joint. Joints are controlled by two opposing sets of muscle extensors and flexors, which work in synchrony for smooth movement. When the central nervous system sends a message to agonist muscle to contract, the tension in the antagonist muscle inhibited by impulses from motor neurons and thus must simultaneously relax. This neural phenomenon is called reciprocal inhibition. Axon reflex. A pilomotor axon reflex can be initiated by mechanical, thermal, electrical, or pharmacological stimuli such as phenylephrine, upon which C fibers are activated to produce a direct ghost-bump reaction, and via axon reflex, an indirect ghost-bump reaction outside of the area of direct stimulation.